Okay, so when it comes to buying a new watch, most of us will automatically be drawn to its design and whether or not we like the way it looks. After all, the purest form of watch advice will always be buy what you love. And that is great advice. Ultimately, it's all that really matters. But sometimes what we think we like aesthetically doesn't always translate to an enjoyable wearing experience, which can be a problem if we're spending hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of pounds. So we thought we'd put together a series of QuickTake videos looking at some of the most important factors when it comes to wearability, helping us to not only find a watch that looks good, but more importantly, one that looks good on us. We're going to start with the most important factor, the lug-to-lug dimension. Let's talk about it. So there's a general rule in the world of watches that I think most people will agree with. Avoid wrist overlap. Now, before we go any further, there's a few things about your own wrist that you need to understand. Mainly its circumference and width. A tailor's tape is ideal for measuring circumference. Otherwise, a strip of paper marked and measured out also works fine. To measure width, we just need a ruler. If your wrist is more oval or circular, this may be slightly harder to measure, but in general, we're looking for the widest point from side to side. For example, my wrist is 16.5 centimeters in circumference and has a maximum width of approximately 54 millimeters. So now we understand our overall wrist size, we can look at where the lug-to-lug dimension comes into play. If this is all new to you, a lug is simply the part of the watch where the strap attaches to the case. Most watches have 4. In between each set of lugs, we usually find a spring bar. This threads through the strap and is secured via holes in the side of the lugs. Traditionally, the strap pivots around this spring bar, slightly inboard of the lug tip. Keep this in mind as it's pretty important. We'll come back to it later. The lug-to-lug dimension is simply the distance from the tip of one lug measured all the way across to the tip of the lug opposite. This represents the total width of the watch case across the wrist and is most often referred to in millimeters. So for me, having a distance across the wrist of about 54 millimeters, to avoid wrist overlap, I really need to be looking at watches that have a lug-to-lug dimension of this distance or less. Now, we mentioned the strap pivot point, and yeah, traditionally this pivots around the spring bar, which is still the case for the majority of dress or classically styled watches, especially ones that come on a traditional strap. However, with a watch that comes on a metal bracelet, this isn't always the case and needs to be considered. For example, the lug-to-lug dimension of this Rolex Explorer 2 is 50 millimeters, but the strap pivots from the solid end link of the bracelet, with the bracelet pivot point sitting a few millimeters outboard of the lug tip. This is known as a male end link, meaning the watch's dimension across the wrist is increased to 53.3 millimeters. Conversely, the strap on this Tudor Black Bay 58, even though like the Rolex it has a metal bracelet with end links, on this watch they're female. So the first link of the strap still pivots around the spring bar, allowing the strap to fall straight down. The result? Improved fit, especially on a smaller wrist. Here, the lug-to-lug and total width dimensions are the same, 47 millimeters. Now, putting the Rolex onto a different strap, like a leather or a NATO, would reduce that distance back to 50 millimeters. However, not all aftermarket straps suit all watches, meaning its total distance across the wrist of 53.3 millimeters with the bracelet might be a deal breaker. Now, if you're new to the watch world, you'll be thinking, so what, right? It's just a few millimeters. But trust me, it makes a massive difference. Just a slight increase of any of the main watch dimensions can make a massive difference to wearability, even half a millimeter. Now, I've been addicted to this hobby for quite a while now, so I know what I like and what my wrist can handle. As a rule, for me, I know that 54 millimeters total width is at the extreme end of what I can wear without overlap occurring, or the watch just feeling too large. On the opposite side of this, knowing a watch's total width across the wrist can help a smaller watch wear bigger. Personally, I really like vintage dress watches, but they tend to be small, normally around 34 millimeters in case size. And even on my smaller than average wrist, I just don't love the fit, despite loving the look. However, some watches with a small case size and lug-to-lug dimensions, due to their design or their strap, can appear larger on wrist. The Casio F91W is a good example of this. It has a case diameter of 34 millimeters and a lug-to-lug of 38 millimeters, so it's small, but it features an integrated design. More on that in a second. This increases the overall dimension on wrist. Plus, it's all matte black, absorbing the light, helping it to visually appear larger. A 34mm watch like this, I wouldn't wear, but one like this, I absolutely would. And the difference is just its design and a few millimeters. So the integrated design style is a child of the 1970s, a design where the case flows seamlessly into the bracelet. It all started with the Royal Oak by Audemars Piguet and popularised further by the Patek Philippe Nautilus. These are some of the most popular and most sought after watches on the planet. Both are true watch icons. Unfortunately, they both cost more than my house, so I can't personally play, but I'm not alone in loving this design style. In recent years, a host of mainstream brands have started to offer similar integrated designs. Most notably the Tissot PRX, classic 70s integrated looks from a well-known Swiss brand at a fraction of the price. It even came with a reasonable 40mm case, and like a lot of people, I bought one immediately. But there was a problem. It's fixed end links. Tissot markets this watch as having a lug-to-lug dimension of 45mm, which on the face of it is more than acceptable. However, the first links are large and fixed firmly in position, massively increasing the overall wrist dimension to 52 millimeters. Suffice to say, we didn't get on, so I sold it. Moral of the story, understand your wrist size. Check it against the lug-to-lug dimension of the watch you're looking to buy and try and find out its total dimension across the wrist from the strap pivot points. Not all watch brands give this dimension, but knowing it avoids overlap and gives you a better understanding of how a watch may wear. So one final thing when it comes to overlap, there are a few exceptions. First off, you may not care, and you know what, good for you. Remember, buy what you love. But if you do care, there are certain situations where wrist overlap is somewhat acceptable, specifically with iconic watches where big is the look. The best example of this would be Panerai and their iconic Italian dive watches. Historically, these are only available in 45 and 47mm case sizes, which is insanely large, but they are what they are. Big is the intended look. A watch of this size, even a Panerai, isn't my personal cup of tea, but if it is yours, and as long as you don't have the smallest of wrists, don't be put off. At least try one on before dismissing the idea altogether. Some watches should be large, and you know what? That's okay. Again, it's all personal taste. Speaking of trying watches on, it's so easy to see a watch online, love it immediately, and fully commit. But even if you've done a ton of research, nothing will ever beat trying a watch on first. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. My wallet has hated me on one too many occasions for having happy online trigger fingers. There's been some serious regret. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Tell me, what considerations do you make before buying a new watch? Do you think about it logically, or do you just fully commit and hope for the best? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next upload, and we'll catch you in the next video.